The field was lost, but still Hurin and Huor and the remnant of the house of Hador stood firm with Turgon of Gondolin, and the hosts of Morgoth could not yet win the pass of Sirion. When Hurin spoke to Turgon, saying, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for in you lives the last hope of the Eldar, and while Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still know fear in his heart." But Turgon answered, "Not long now can Gondolin be hidden, and being discovered, it must fall." Then Huor spoke and said, "Yet if it stands but a little while, then out of your house shall come hope of the elves and men. This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death, though we part here forever, and I shall not look upon your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall rise. Farewell." And Maglin, Turgon's sister son, who stood by, heard these words and did not forget them, but he said nothing.
Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, welcome to Keep on Tolkien. This is, I'm Danny J.
This is Joel N.
And we're here giving you episode 13. Or no, this is episode...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 13.
13.
13.
It's starting to get hard to keep track.
Yeah. Episode 13. Tuor.
So, if you'll remember previously, our last few episodes, we've been going over the three major tales of the first age. As Tolkien put it, there are the three... What is it? The essential tales.
Chief tales.
Chief tales of the Elder Days.
Yeah.
Three chief tales. So the first of which was the Beren and Luthien love tale. We covered that in 2 episodes, and then there was the Children of Hurin, or Story of Tuor and Turambar. We covered that in 2 episodes, and now the third of the chief tales is going to be involving our good friend Tuor, who's actually cousin to Turin.
Yeah. A little younger. He's like 8 years younger. But, yeah, they're cousins. So to start the story of Tuor, we have to talk a little bit about Turgon, son of Fingolfin.
A lot of Tuor's story has to do with Gondolin.
Right, and Turgon, as we know, later goes to found Gondolin.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, when the Noldor returned to Middle-earth at the beginning of the First Age, Turgon settled in Nevrast, where he built Vinyamar. Vinyamar, right? Yeah, Vinyamar.
Yep.
And he had 1/3 of the Noldor of Fingolfin's people.
So he had a pretty good chunk of the Noldor there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some Sindar follow Turgon as well.
So pretty early on in the First Age, in about 50 years into the First Age, Turgon actually came in contact with the Valar Ulmo.
Ulmo, Lord of Waters.
And Ulmo's always been kind of like a Prometheus from Greek mythology. He's always been out to help out elves and men. He kind of pities them after the rest of the Valar kind of left them alone.
He's also kind of solitary from the Valar as well.
Yeah, he's kind of off on his own all the time.
Yeah, he doesn't if Ulmo shows up to a meeting at the Ring of Doom, like shit is really going down.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Because Ulmo usually never comes back from the sea.
So at one point in the First Age, about 50 years in, Ulmo actually talks to Turgon and instructs him to prepare a secret kingdom in the hidden valley of Tumladen in the encircling mountains. We'll post a map of this just to show you exactly where it is, where they started and where they moved from. Nevrast is kind of an area along the western coast.
Yeah,
you kind of move straight east inward into the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll post a map just so everyone can see where that is. And then it took them about 52 years of secret labor with Turgon and his people to start building Gondolin.
Yeah, and Gondolin, it stood for around 500 years. And it was in almost in complete seclusion. Because the thing about Gondolin is once they built it, you can, it's a secret city. So, like, you can't... Only certain people are allowed to come and go.
Right, they're trying to keep it a secret as much as they can. And with that many people living there, they're pretty strict.
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of a, you can't come or go policy
Right.
unless you have a specific reason. But yeah, they remained secret for a very long time. And the city itself was actually built after the city of Tirion.
Yeah. Back in Valinor.
Back in Valinor. So that's what Turgon had in mind when he started building this great city. It's one of the greatest Noldorian kingdoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Turgon had his kingdom at Nevrast, but he largely abandoned it. But following a prophecy by Ulmo, he left in Vinyamar a sword and mail and helm for one who would come at the hour of most dire need for the Noldor, and it'll bring hope.
Yeah, Ulmo basically foretold the fall of the Noldor, letting Turgon know, hey, this isn't going to last forever, and you should leave behind these items for an unspoken hero who will show up in your greatest hour of need. Who could that be?
I wonder. And also Turgon, he also sent secretly mariners over to try to get to Valinor.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them disappear, except for one guy in particular named Voronoi.
Yeah, he sent some sailors out to try and obtain the mercy of the Valar after Melkor started seriously winning all the battles of Beleriand.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that they needed help, and he was desperately trying to do what he could while they were still a secret city, so they sent out those secret mariners who never came back, except for the one, like you said. Now, that's kind of a background on the city of Gondolin and how that came to be, just briefly. Another couple people that we have to talk about who are super crucial to the whole Gondolin story is Hurin and Huor.
Right.
That's Turin's father and Huor's father. Or Tuor's father, excuse me. A lot of T's and H's.
Yeah. And, so these are two men of the House of Hador. So basically what happens is the Dagor Brokilok, which is the fourth battle.
Battle of Sudden Flame, the one where dark times kind of started.
Right, yeah, this is the one where the peace is finally broken.
Right, this is right before the Baron and Luthien tale.
Mm-hmm. And so the brothers are a little bit caught up after this battle by some orcs that are giving them some trouble. And they're actually rescued at the behest of Ulmo. They're rescued by Thorondor and the great Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles come to save the day again.
Once again.
Only
in times of most dire need do the Eagles show up.
So the Eagles show up to save Hurin and Huor from these orcs and takes them to Gondolin.
Because Gondolin is near where their eyrie is, where the Eagles live, their abode.
Yeah,
the Crisegrim.
The holdup for all of the great Eagles is actually in the encircling mountains, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
It's really close to Gondolin.
Yeah, they call it the Crisegrim, don't they? Like the
Yep.
crest of
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, Crisegrim.
For all you taking notes at home.
Yeah, take some notes. Crisegrim in the encircling mountains, in the Vale of Tumladen.
Now Ulmo counseled Turgon, the king of Gondolin, to treat these two, Hurin and Huor, as guests, because Ulmo prophesied that help would come from their house eventually. So naturally, Turgon received them well, treated them like guests, and it was kind of nice. They lived amongst the Gondolindrum for a couple of years.
Like 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were like in high regard, like people loved them.
They're good guys.
Yeah, and the Gondolindrum really took to them. They were like pretty close to Turgon, the king. They were the toast of the town, man. People really liked them.
But alas, the whole rule that you can't come and go became an issue because there's still all of this stuff going on with Hurin and Huor's people back home with their house. And all this fighting that's still going on after the war, and they can't leave. So eventually, I don't want to say they begged Turgon.
They do kind of beg him.
But they do kind of beg him. They say, the elves are granted with these long spans of lives, and while you guys hide out here, it might be a short time for you, but for us, this is years and years.
Yeah.
And we've got, things going on back home that we have to attend to. Like, can we please leave we'll even leave the way we came, so we can't tell anyone where this place actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And reluctantly, Turgon actually agrees. I think this is the only time he ever waives the rule, like you can't leave Gondolin.
Right, except for, like, people that, you know.
Well, right, he has his special spies and people
Yeah,
going
yeah.
out, but in general.
Yeah, he gives them leave to go the way they came,
Mhm.
essentially. So yeah, they're picked up by the Eagles, and they're dropped off at home in Dorloman.
Back in Dorloman. And as soon as they get back to Dorloman, Hurin actually takes a wife, and he marries someone by the name of Rian from the House of Beor.
Oh, Huor marries Rian. Did you say Hurin?
Oh, did I say the
I
Hurin?
think you said Hurin.
I'm sorry.
Anyway,
guys.
Huor marries Rian of the House of Beor. And they have a son called Tuor. And what's really cool about Tuor is he's the descendant of all three houses of the Edain.
Mm-hmm. Because his father's from the House of Hador and Haleth, is that right?
I believe so, yeah.
And
We looked this up the other night.
Yeah, and then Rian, his mother, is from the House of Beor. So you get all three houses of men, Beor, Hador, and Haleth. So that was pretty cool. He's a pretty unique guy.
Mm-hmm. And Tuor is actually born right around the time, it's either shortly after or right around the same time that Huor and Hurin march off to war in the Nirnaeth.
Yeah, so he's pretty young when it comes to the next great battle, the Dagor Nirnaeth Arnoediad.
Yeah.
I always have trouble with that last one.
Arnoediad.
The Battle of Unnumbered Tears, which is the major victory for Melkor that really turns everything around.
Mm-hmm.
So he's you're right. I think he's just being born. While at this point, his cousin Turin, if you remember from last episode, he was like 8 years old.
He's about 8 years old. Yeah, he's old enough to realize like he doesn't want his dad to go off to war.
Right, and at this point, Tuor's just being born.
Yeah, and so in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, which we've actually mentioned this before in previous episodes, Huor is killed. In the battle, and actually, which is right around the time from the excerpt that we read earlier today.
Yeah, that excerpt at the beginning is kind of explains what happens right before Huor's death during the battle of the Nirnaeth when they know they're losing.
Mm-hmm.
They start to retreat, and Huor specifically says to Turgon, hey, you Gondolindum really have to get out of here because you're the last stronghold of the Noldor. That's what this is all about, the whole Noldor versus Melkor stuff. And that's when Huor prophesizes the savior is going to become from the heirs of both of their houses. That's what the whole beginning excerpt was about for the episode today.
Yeah, and just to read that again, it says, out of your house shall come the hope of elves and men. From you and from me a new star shall arise.
Pretty hopeful stuff during a pretty dark time. And then shortly after that, Huor is killed. And his family never hears from him again.
Nope.
That's the end of Huor.
And yeah, so after the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, things are not going well in Dorloman. We talked about this in the Turin episode, they are under occupation by the Easterlings.
Yep. The evil men that betrayed the Union during the Nirnaeth.
Buttholes.
What a bunch of turds.
Yeah, they're turds.
Now, obviously, it was widely known news that the battle was lost. And after Huor didn't come back and Rian, his wife, heard that, we lost the battle. In fact, it was a slaughter. So when Rian hears that the battle is over, and not only that, but the battle is lost, and the Easterlings are coming to take over their land, she obviously panics and tries to leave Dorloman while she's still pregnant with Tuor. And she probably would have been lost and died in the wilderness if she had not, luckily, been picked up by a band of Sindarin elves.
Sindarin elves from Mithrim.
Mithrim is, just close by to where they are, right?
Yeah, Mithrim is, I think it's just south of Hithlum proper.
Okay. And like we said earlier, we're going to throw up some maps to kind of show you guys where all this happens because there's some traveling that takes place in the story.
Yeah.
So the Sindarin elves, they pick her up and they bring her to their hideout home in the mountains of Mithrim, and they live there for a while.
Yeah, and shortly after Tuor is born, the leader of the Sindarin Elves tells Rian that they have news that Huor has been killed in the Nirnaeth. And so Rian, she falls into a deep despair, and she's only in her early 20s too. Like, she's young, she's got a whole life ahead of her.
Right.
And she traveled to the Haud and I don't know how to say that.
I can't pronounce it.
It's
either.
it's a very hard word to pronounce. Anyway, it means the Hill of the Slain.
Right, because after the Nirnaeth, all of the dead, and there were a lot of dead, they took all the dead bodies from the battle and they just stacked them up, and it made a giant hill of bodies, and they called it the Hill of the Slain. And after Rian heard that Huor was dead, she couldn't believe it, and out of despair, she actually traveled to where the battle was and found the mound of bodies, and she became struck with just absolute grief, and she fell and laid down on the hill of bodies and died.
Yeah, right there.
Right there.
So our main character is now an orphan, and he's like, he never even knew his mother.
Right, and now he's an orphan.
Or his father. He didn't know any of his parents.
Right, orphan living with some Sindarin elves. Pretty similar to his cousin, actually.
To his cousin,
this point in time.
being raised in Doria.
Mm-hmm. I think this is around the same time when Turin, his cousin, was being raised in Doria.
Yeah, so Turin leaves right around the same time that Tuor is born.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fun facts.
Yeah.
So after a while, after the Easterlings had totally invaded Hithlum, the little band of Sindar that was hiding out in the Mithrim Mountains, they had to move. They had to move their camp over to a different area called Androth. And that's really where Tuor spent a lot of his youth and grew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a cave system.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was pretty in depth and a good place to hide. Now, at one point, they weren't just living in these mountains just to see how long they could get by. They were trying to find a way to leave. Mm-hmm. And their main strategy at this point was to try to cross Hithlum and leave that country area through what's known as the Gate of the Noldor.
Can I try to say this in Elvish?
Yeah, you go for the Elvish name. I wasn't even going to try.
This is Anon and Geldiv. Yeah.
It's basically an area at the beginning of the mouths of the great river Sirion. And we'll, again, reference some maps to this. Mm-hmm. And the Gate of the Noldor it's an important geographical place because it's kind of right along the borders of Hithlum. The Hithlum's totally encircled by mountains, mm-hmm. and this is kind of like a secret way through those mountains.
Right.
Apparently there was a secret door that the Noldor came through on a river that went through the mountains, and nobody can really find it. So these Sindarin elves, they're not quite aware of where it is, and they try looking for it.
So what eventually happens is they're assailed by orcs, right?
Yeah, so they try to make a trip across Hithlum to make it to where they think the gate is, but they get assailed by orcs, and the elven group that Tuor grew up with and lived with was totally disbanded, and he actually himself got captured,
and he becomes a thrall.
Yeah, he becomes Turin didn't make it, and he became a slave in Hithlum. I'm sorry, Tuor.
This is going to be hard for Joel.
I apologize.
Tuor, son of Huor. He is enslaved. And he serves the Easterling chief, whose name is Lorgan. And they cruelly oppressed the remainder of the House of Hador. And he worked in slavery for right around 3 years. And during this time, this is when he became a man, essentially. He grew to his full stature and strength, and he was swifter than any of the Easterlings could ever be.
Swifter and taller.
Yeah. We talked about this in the last episode. These men of the House of Hador, with the exception of our good pal Hurin, are tall and big men. Mm-hmm. Hurin made up for it with his ferocity.
Oh yeah, that scene where he goes down toward the end of the Nirnaeth, and he's just slaying 70 people that try to come after him with an axe.
Aure and Tuluva.
Yeah, he's pretty badass. Yeah. So Tuor has some of the genes from the House of Hador, and he's huge. He's a big guy. And after his 3 years or so that he was enslaved, he eventually gets to a point where he is large enough to kind of overthrow two of the people that are watching him at one point when they're out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And he books it, and he makes it out.
And he makes his way back to Androth.
Yeah, he makes it back to the only place where he really knows to hide out. He makes it back to Androth, and he's the only one there. All the other elves that were living with him there, they got captured and ran off when they got hit by orcs previously. But he lives there for another 4 years as just kind of an outlaw, just fucking with the Easterlings.
Mm-hmm. And so he takes up this plan again that he was originally trying to do, and they're trying to. He's going to try to find the gate of the Noldor and get out of Hithlum. Yeah,
just like he heard the elves trying to do, because at this point that's the only good plan he's got either. So,
So one night, on a fateful night, a spring of water starts trickling out through the front of the cave system, So Tuor decides that, this might be something.
Yeah, he became inspired at that because it was some kind of miraculous event, and he was inspired to follow the water, which sounds kind of like a sign from our good friend Ulmo.
Ulmo.
So he traveled southwest along the spring, down through Hithlum until he reached an opening in the mountains on the other side, along the western edge. And he didn't really see what was going on here. It was kind of just a weird opening into a cave. And it's just water rushing through, not much to look at. And then at this point, he's kind of confused and lost, but he happens upon two important characters. Two elves, in fact. And their names are Gelmir and Arminas. And those two elves, I know their names are kind of random, but you might remember them from the last story, the story of Turin.
Right. Because who do they work for but Círdan the fucking shipwright?
Círdan the shipwright. So back in the story of Turin, if you guys are paying attention in that episode, there's a point when Turin's living in Nargothrond, and two elves come to warn him that, hey, we got a message from Círdan.
Who got it from Ulmo?
Who got it from Ulmo that says you guys should really break down this bridge in front of Nargothrond and batten down the cages because there's some bad stuff coming.
Mm-hmm.
Those two elves that deliver that message are, in fact, these two in the same.
Yeah. And they help Tuor through the gate of the Noldor.
Mm-hmm. They see him, and they talk to him for a while, and they get to talk, and they find out that, hey, they're messengers from Círdan, and they were actually on their way down to Nargothrond to talk to them about what was about to happen. And Tuor tells them that he's sitting here trying to find the gate of the Noldor.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically like, well, look no further. You're kind of standing in it.
Yeah. And, so Tuor passes through the gate of the Noldor and comes to Nevrast. And at this point, he sees what no mortal man has yet seen, the sea.
Yeah, when I read that, it kind of took me a minute. I was like, that can't be right.
No, because they all come from the east. Yeah, I was thinking of that.
Think about it. Everyone that deals with the ocean thus far, they're all elves.
Yeah, all elves.
They're all elves. And the men have never even come this far. So he's the first human man to actually come to the shore of the sea. And he's filled with, what do they call it, sea longing?
Right,
and he falls in love with the sea.
He's in he instantly falls. There's characters in Tolkien that have this sea longing, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like they're constantly drawn to the sea.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a magical thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really cool portion in the Unfinished Tales. I think it's actually like the very first story in the Unfinished Tales is called Of Tuor and His Coming to Gondolin. And it's literally just about this journey. Mm-hmm. Where he starts following this trickling stream, and he gets to the gate of the Noldor, and he gets through, and as he comes out to the ocean, the descriptions are just amazing. They're so gorgeous. Tolkien writes this whole portion of time he draws it out of him like making it and walking along this crevice to the shore, and it's gorgeous, and there's like a magical music that comes from how the water runs into this crevice and the birds are it's really something. You should read it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Read the Unfinished Tales. That shit is I've said this before, it is pornographic.
It really is. It's amazing.
To a Tolkien fan, Unfinished Tales is just it's great.
It's some of when I was reading that story, it struck me as some of the best writing that I had read so far on Tolkien in terms of describing like a magical landscape. Because, I mean, you talk about Middle-earth and Beleriand, they're all these, high fantasy magical places, and he definitely goes into description on, like, geography and stuff, but he does a smash-up job here. You should check it out.
Yeah.
So, at this point, Tuor reaches the shores of the sea, and he makes it to the country of Neverest for the first time. And he spends some time along the shores of the Great Sea. They call it the shores there. It's the Sea of Belagir.
Belagir.
Mm-hmm. And he walks along the shore, and eventually he makes it down to Vinyamar, the old kingdom that Turgon was living in for a while before they built Gondolin.
And they abandoned it.
They abandoned that place to go move to Gondolin. He followed some swans down the shore to make it here. There were another sign. He got like multiple signs to follow along on his journey. And so he made it to Vinyamar, which is an abandoned city, abandoned kingdom. And what does he find while he's there?
A set of arms and mail and helmet that just they fit him.
They fit him perfectly.
They fit him perfectly. Look at that.
And they're just one of the only like things left in this kingdom.
Yeah.
He makes it into like the throne room and whatnot, and they're set up above the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And the shield that it has an image of a white swan on a blue field, and it's just supposed to be really beautiful. And he takes up arms, and I mean, why not? They're just hanging out there, and he wanders back down to the shore. But then during a great storm, he is actually visited himself by Ulmo, the Lord of Waters, appears directly to this human man, which like never happens. I don't think
Right, that's the first time.
I don't think any of the Valar really show up and do anything with the men.
No, yeah, they mostly don't fuck with men.
But Tuor's a pretty important character.
Beloved of Ulmo.
Beloved of Ulmo, and Ulmo orders him to seek out the city of Gondolin to warn them, essentially. This is that long prophesized warning that's supposed to come to Turgon. So the morning after he talks to Ulmo, he's still near the shores on Neverest, near Vinyamar, and he actually finds someone on the shores, an elf called Voronwë, who happens to be one of the elves that are from Gondolin, that Turgon had sent out to try to ship and sail their way over to Valinor, but
Right.
like we said earlier, nobody made it, and everyone was lost except for this guy who just happened to wash up on shore right there in Vinyamar, right as Tuor is hanging out there.
Yeah, and so Voronwë essentially realizes that they all know the prophecy of Ulmo. So he kind of realizes that this might be that dude. So
Might be the guy.
This might be our guy. So he not reluctantly, he decides to lead him back to Gondolin to find the secret path to Gondolin. And so they're going. This is actually a really cool part. They're going through.
This is a great part in the story.
So they're going through this part of Beleriand that is devastated by Glaurung the dragon from the last episode, if you guys recall correctly, and they're at the pools of Ivrin, which you might remember from the next episode or from the last episode as well. Turin goes there a couple times in his life, but at that particular juncture, they see a man who doesn't say anything to them, but he looks like he's busy.
He looks pretty preoccupied. Mind you, this is a very large, dark-haired man.
Beautiful man, too.
Beautiful man with a crazy dragon helmet on and a black sword. and they just see this guy booking it north.
And they
kind of
they have a moment where they both see each other, but they don't speak, and nothing is ever said.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And this guy runs away.
And he runs away. And that's his fucking cousin, man. That's fucking Turin. That's
Turambar.
Turambar. He's got
cousin,
Gorthang. Yeah, he's got Gorthang with him, and he's on a mission.
Honestly, I fantasize about what it would be like if those two actually stopped to say something to each other right there. Like, what could have happened if they figured out, both of them on their own missions, like what's going on here.
At least you get a hug, right?
Right.
From your cousin.
I want to think that Turin could have helped out Tuor with his mission and vice versa, but
I don't know,
honestly, with the way Turambar's life goes, he probably would have just ended up fucking up everything for Tuor.
Yeah.
So it's probably good that they stayed apart.
It's probably good they didn't hook up, yeah.
But that's just a really cool...
It's a moment in history.
A moment in passing.
Yeah.
Of two great characters that could have met. Anyway, so they see, not knowing that it was his cousin Turin, they see Turambar running by. And they're like, well, that was weird. I guess let's continue. And they continue on. And they do make it all the way to the encircling mountains to where Gondolin is.
The secret gate of Gondolin.
The secret gate. Kind of like the secret gate of the Noldor. The secret gate of Gondolin is another weird geographical structure of some kind of like a dried out river that runs under a mountain that's hidden and all sorts of crazy stuff. We're not going to get too into detail about that, but
so yeah, they're essentially trying to get back into Gondolin, where they are taken prisoner by a man called Elemakil, and they're brought before Ecthelion of the Fountain. Ecthelion is a cool character, guys. Keep track of this guy.
Now Ecthelion recognizes the arms that Tuor is wearing, and recognize it as the arms that they had that they had left behind, by the request of Ulmo. And he recognizes the sign and instantly welcomes him into the city with honor, because he knows that this guy must be important.
This is the guy we've been looking for.
Yeah, this is the guy we've been waiting for.
We've been dreaming for.
So he takes Tuor before the High King Turgon himself. Now, mind you, at this point, Turgon is the king of the Noldor, isn't he? He's the last remaining...
He is the High King of the Noldor, yeah, because Fingon is killed in the Nirnaeth.
So coming in front of the king, he finally delivers the message that Ulmo bid him to deliver, that the doom of Mandos was nearing its fulfillment, and Turgon should abandon his city and retreat to the havens of Sirion.
And he delivers this message without having... He kind of gets, possessed by Ulmo.
Yeah, he doesn't quite understand the words he's saying.
But yeah, he's saying them.
He's saying them. And for whatever reason, even though Turgon had prepared for this messenger for, how many years ago did he leave that stuff there back in Vinyamar? I mean, it's been hundreds of years at this point, hasn't it, since the Gondolindrum got set up?
Almost 500 years.
Almost 500 years.
Yeah.
And even though he's aware of all this... And he trusted Ulmo enough to, make the armor and whatnot and leave it there. Apparently, Turgon decided not to heed Ulmo's warning. Though it did prompt him to block the hidden door into Gondolin. They kind of collapsed it to make sure no one gets in.
Right, and then they stopped letting messengers or anybody. It was completely shut off from then on.
Right, they just went into high security mode. I think it was another one of those pride things. He loved his city so much at this point he didn't want to abandon it.
Right. Similar thing that happened with Orodreth and the Bridge of Turin.
Right.
We love this bridge. It's super dope. We're not going to break it.
So that's kind of how he took Ulmo's message. They didn't abandon the city, but they tried to prepare the city to a point.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it. And Tuor decided, well, at this point, he's got nowhere to go. He's got no family.
To go.
So he decides to stay.
Yeah.
They're obviously happy about not having to let him leave.
Right, because they're done with that.
So he lives in Gondolin with them. And
he learns everything from the Noldor.
This is Tuor's life. He's essentially like an elf.
Mm-hmm. He is probably the most beloved of the he was most accepted by the Noldor as one of their own, because he essentially, You'll see why. But like he's very well renowned among the Noldor.
Yeah, it's soon after that, or excuse me. So while he's living there, he falls in love with King Turgon's daughter, and her name is Idril.
Idril Celebrimbor.
And Idril is also a love interest of another character who happens to be in Gondolin at this time. Also a character that happens to be her cousin.
Right, and we actually mentioned him in the excerpt.
Yeah, his name is Maglin, and he is also an asshole.
Yeah, so a little bit of background, 30 seconds on Maglin. How about that? Maglin's father was Eol, a dark elf who kidnapped essentially Turgon's sister and married her and kept her over in his forest where he made... He was a really good smith, made a lot of cool stuff, including Turin's sword.
Turinbar's sword.
Anglkel, later known as Gurthang. And he also made another sword called Angriel, who...
we assume Maglin has it.
We assume, yeah, Maglin most likely has it, because Maglin and his mother actually escape Eol because they hate him, and they make their way back to Gondolin.
So that's how...
how Maglin gets back.
That's how Maglin comes to be in Gondolin. I don't want to call him the bastard kid of Turgon's sister.
Kind of, though.
Kind of, sort of. It was like a forced relationship, and Turgon's sister, left when she could and brought back her kid.
Mm-hmm.
So Maglin has got a weird background, and he's kind of a maniacal son of a bitch.
Yeah,
and he has a real hard thing for his cousin Idril.
And he desires her among all else.
Among all else, but sure enough, her and Tuor decide to get married because they're in love. Why not?
Yeah, and that does not sit well with Maglin.
Not at all. No, he's pretty upset about that. He really comes to hate Tuor.
Yeah.
He
hates the.
He already didn't like Tuor for a number of reasons.
Well, he just didn't like men for whatever reason. Like he didn't like the race of men. He's racist.
Like we said, he just grew up as kind of a dick character.
Mm-hmm. He actually gets a group of followers that also hate Tuor. And they're kind of there's this secret society in the Noldor
hate the man in the
that
city.
hate Tuor. Yeah, it's basically the clan. It's the clan of. It's a group of people that hate a dude based on his race.
The clan of Maglin,
and they're going to try to take him down.
Yeah, what also really pisses off Maglin is at one point he's so endeared by the Gondolindrum that he gets to be assigned the leader of a house. They call it the House of the Wing. How appropriate. That shield that he bore coming in was that beautiful picture of a white bird. It was a swan.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided that was appropriate. Now, in year 510 in the first age is when Gondolin's secrecy finally failed. This is around the time when Hurin, Tuor's uncle, the one who had been captured in Angband for so many years, watching the tragedy of his family go out, the children of Hurin. Hurin himself is released, and as he is released, he travels south, and he attempts to go to Gondolin.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know exactly where Gondolin is, but since he was flown there on an eagle, he has kind of an idea. So he walks up near the encircling mountains, and he starts screaming at Turgon, because, Hurin had a pretty shitty life until this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to get Turgon to let him in, and he's cursing him. And ultimately, he doesn't find his way, and he leaves. But it just so happens Morgoth had his spies watching.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the indicators, hey, Gondolin is over here. And then there was something else that actually really gave away the city altogether. Maglin, that son of a bitch.
So Maglin is defying the king's orders, and he is going outside of Gondolin to mine essentially things because he's a good smithy, and he's looking for stuff to mine. And lo and behold, guess what happens? Captured by orcs, brought to Angband. He speaks directly to Morgoth, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Morgoth questions him directly.
Yeah.
And Morgoth basically tries to get out of him, hey, where's Gondolin? And Maglin, being the dick that he is, actually betrayed Turgon. in promise for lordship of Gondolin and the possession of Idril, his cousin that he loved so much.
Yeah.
That was Morgoth's promise. I mean, I don't know why he thought he was going to honor that, but whatever, Maglin, dick. So he, for that price, betrayed the location of the entrance to Gondolin. Dick. And he kind of conspired with him from there. It wasn't just like a one-time, here's the entrance. He kind of conspired.
No, he was all like, when you all show up, I'm going to help you from the inside, wink, wink. Like, we're going to
take this place down.
It is a full conspiracy. It is not just it's a definite conspiracy plan.
To the point where he even, Maglin even helps Morgoth plan the timing. And he has them time it up.
A bitch.
Yeah, he has them time it up right as the Gondolindrim are all celebrating the festival of Tarnin Osta. Did I say that right? Tarnin Osta.
Tarnin Osta, yeah.
I think it's like a harvest party of some kind.
It's like and it's something like that. But what they do as part of this tradition is they all line up on the walls of Gondolin, and they watch the sunrise.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But it's a big event, so everyone's a bit preoccupied, and that is when Morgoth has his assault on the city start.
And so, okay, guys, there's a lot of information, a lot of specific information about the Fall of Gondolin that we're not going to really super get into here in this episode. We're actually thinking about doing an episode on the Fall of Gondolin for like season 2 or something, where we get into the because we're coming to the end of season 1 here, guys.
Yeah, we're coming up. So the Fall of Gondolin is actually the main name of the third great tale of the Elder Days. Like we had mentioned before, the 3 chief tales of the Elder Days were Beren and Luthien, the children of Hurin. We covered that by talking about Turin Turambar. And then the third great tale is called The Fall of Gondolin. And it was actually one of the first stories that Tolkien had ever started writing.
Yeah, he wrote it right after the Battle of the Somme.
Yeah, it was one of his first Middle-earth writings at all, was The Fall of Gondolin. So this was supposed to be a pretty big battle, a pretty big story. Like, this is major thing, Battle of Pelennor Fields type size, but unfortunately it's also one of the stories that never quite got finished, which really disappoints me, because I want to hear more about, because on the other 2 of the 3 major tales, there's so much information and there's such beautiful stories when they're all put together by Christopher. But I guess the Fall of Gondolin wasn't. Maybe there's just too much information out there.
Dude, I feel like it was it was next on his list, but he just never got around to it.
Right. I was really glad that we got Beren and Luthien from him, because that was a big deal for him especially.
Yeah.
But, so the Fall of Gondolin, the battle is huge, and we're going to try not to get into the specifics of the battle, because there is quite a lot.
Yeah.
But there were a few things in the battle that happened that we wanted to touch on. I mean, the battle was big as it was. There were 12 houses of the Gondolindrim that fought in the battle in an organized fashion that we're not going to get into. As the sun went down during that day of the festival, a red glow started to grow in the north, near the dying snow, as they say, on the mountains. And the red glow dyed the snow on the mountains like a blood color. And riders fled into the city saying, Morgoth is here, it's too late. And there is a huge host of orcs, trolls, Balrogs, and dragons. He brought out everything.
Like, he knew that he was coming down. He was going to smash them in one single blow.
Right. Like that massive battle in the Nirnaeth when he brought out everything, the Balrogs and the dragons, and just decimated. Yeah. He's doing that again. Except
the Leaguers of Angband are emptied.
Yes.
On this battle.
And he is trying to take them down, and he's doing a pretty good job. There's also a really cool passage that I read that said he brought not only, hosts of orcs and Balrogs and dragons, but he also brought something called iron dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And they're horrible creatures that were supposed to be from the pits of Angband. And they don't really say much about them, and I was looking some stuff up, and people say it can be assumed that they're basically inanimate objects. And a lot of people say that it's a direct inspiration from the battle that Tolkien was in, right before he wrote this story, the Battle of the Somme, which is one of the first battles in World War I, that debuted tanks.
Yeah, tanks were largely instrumental in that particular battle.
And that was right after that battle was when J.R.R. Tolkien was so rattled up. He started to write the Fall of Gondolin based on that battle.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think these Iron Dragons are basically his version of tanks showing up, because it said that the Iron Dragons could cross rough terrain, and in the bellies of the Iron Dragons were orcs with scimitars and spears ready to jump out as they needed. So he seriously prepared for this assault.
And while all this shit is going down, Maeglin is making his move, and he's headed over to Tuor's friggin' house.
Yeah, so Maeglin finally decides it's time for me to do my thing now that we're in the heat of this, and he heads down to where Tuor's house is, and his plan is to kill Eärendil, Tuor's son, throw him over the edges of the city and let him fall into the fire and the battle, and then he was going to try to make Idril, the mother, show him the way out of the city?
Yeah.
Because
she had prepared a secret way.
Yeah, Idril had a secret way out.
Because her and Tuor were very skeptical of Turgon's plan. So they decided that it was going to be a slaughter if anything ever got in here, so they had a secret way out.
Right. I mean, a big part of Tuor's life was delivering the message to Turgon that this isn't going to last and it's going to fall. So he prepared himself, since Turgon decided not to prepare the city anyway.
So Tuor shows up as Maeglin is dragging Eärendil out. Baby Eärendil, which we didn't mention, actually, that they had a son.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're probably wondering who Eärendil is at this point. Well, while they were living happily in Gondolin, Tuor and his new wife Idril had a son.
And so Eärendil's he's 4 maybe years old.
Right, and he's another character who is the product of an elf and a man.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one of those few, Beren and Luthien type things, where Tuor and Idril are now together, a man and an elf, and they had a son, Eärendil.
Which is the subject of our next episode. Stay tuned.
So Maeglin is trying to kill Eärendil, drag him out, and throw him over to the edge. And this is right when Tuor shows up.
And Tuor and his house fight against Maeglin and his house. And eventually Tuor kills Eärendil. kills his own son. He kills Maeglin, right? He chucks him off the...
Yeah, he throws Maeglin over the edge instead. He's like, no, hell no. I mean, Tuor is a huge guy. I can only imagine how easy it was for him to pick up Maeglin and throw that little bitch over the side.
And it specifically said that he smote the sides. He hit 3 things on the way down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it specifically says 3 things. Yeah, he hit it thrice upon the walls. Boom, boom, boom. He hit. Yeah. Tolkien got real specific with how that motherfucker fell to his death.
Jeez, I wonder if there was actually a character in the Battle of, what was it, Somme, you said?
In the Somme? Yeah.
The Battle of the Somme that J.R.R. Tolkien was in. I wonder if there was actually a character, in his troupe that was similar to the character of Maeglin. I wonder if there was somebody who was trying to do something shady.
Oh, maybe.
That'd be
Maeglin's
cool.
based off a real asshole.
Yeah, maybe he's based off a real asshole from the Battle of Somme. I don't know. Something to think about.
Yeah, and so at this point, Tuor kind of realizes that the battle is lost between the cities falling. So he decides to gather a whole bunch of people and take them out the secret way.
Yeah, at this point, there's already been some really cool major battles. There's a final major, resistance in the center of the city around the fountain.
Oh, Ecthelion, yeah.
Around the fountain, and that's when Turgon finally repented. Is this was a bad idea. We shouldn't have stayed. You guys try to do what you can and get as many people out. I'm going to try to defend what I can.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pretty dramatic point, because this is when Gothmog, the leader of the Balrogs, comes into the area, into the square where the fountain is, and is going to kill everybody, but Ecthelion has a badass moment.
Ecthelion, yeah, man. He takes that motherfucker down, and they fight in the fountain itself, and they're both drowned.
Ecthelion is Turgon's leader of the guard, or
the House of the Fountain, I believe.
House of the Fountain?
Yeah, he's the Lord of the Fountain, they call it. Yeah.
Okay.
Ecthelion in the House of the Fountain.
Yeah, so he's a pretty big character in Gondolin, and he sacrifices himself.
Oh. What about Ecthelion? Let's do a Third Age tie-in. What is Ecthelion's sword?
Glamdring.
No, Orcrist.
Orcrist. Oh,
Orcrist.
balls.
Yeah, so
I had a 50% chance.
50% chance. The swords known as Orcrist and Glamdring, Gandalf's sword in the Third Age, and Thorin Oakenshield's sword.
These are the swords that they pull out of the troll horde in the beginning of The Hobbit.
They're from Gondolin.
Yeah, they're Gondolindrum blades, and this blade is being used right now in the fight.
So what's really funny to me is they call Orcrist the Goblin Cleaver, and it killed Gothmog.
Yeah, you think it'd be
called the Balrog Cleaver,
which is way more badass.
Yeah, or Balrog's Bane.
There you go.
Simple. Yeah,
the BB. But
anyway, so yeah, that happens.
Ecthelion kills Gothmog in the fountain with Orcrist.
Yeah, and they both die in the.
And they both die in the fountain, and they like drowned Gothmog's flames in the fountain. It's super dramatic. And then that gives them time to get the remaining citizens and Tuor and Idril and their son Erendil. It gives them all time to get away on the secret path that Idril had previously put together for this very scenario. Now they make it's like a secret path that goes like under their house and like down under the city, and it comes out in a field, but it's covered by bushes, and then they run to this pass in the mountains. The getaway scene is pretty dramatic, but the thing to note is that at a point they're in the mountains, and they're along a really thin ridge. They call it the Eagles Cleft, and it's a very narrow pass with a cliff to one hand and a sheer drop to the other. So it's pretty dangerous. Single file along here, and they've got this group of refugees at this point basically trying to get out, and they come across a Balrog on this path that was purposely sent there to prevent them from escaping the city.
And Morgoth is like, go kill all the refugees.
Yeah, basically. And so now we've got another badass character that steps forth, Glorfindel.
And he's actually in the Third Age too. It's a really weird character. Anyway, Glorfindel takes on this Balrog by himself.
Does Glorfindel have the other sword? Does he have Glamdring?
No, Turgon. That's Turgon's sword.
Oh, the king's sword.
Yeah, Glamdring is Turgon's sword.
Oh, God. So the entire time Gandalf was carrying the
Turgon's sword,
the King of Gondolin's sword.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Isn't that badass?
That's badass.
Yeah.
I can see why Gandalf was like, yeah, you guys can have those. I'm going to take this one.
Yeah, like it was more than up to the task of killing a Balrog. Yeah, and so just like Gandalf, Glorfindel takes on a Balrog 1v1.
Using his own special, so who knows what Glorfindel's got. I'm sure they've probably got all cool swords. Yeah. They're all from Gondolin.
Yeah. But yeah, they eventually both fall over the precipice and are killed, both Glorfindel and the Balrog. So Glorfindel sacrificed his life to have these people escape Gondolin.
Yeah, so we've got two elves that sacrificed themselves along the way. We had Glorfindel, and then we had Ecthelion. Those are two really badass names that you guys should always remember.
And Glorfindel is actually the only character that we know of ever to be reincarnated and sent back to Middle-earth. Because he's at the Council of Elrond.
Does he meet Frodo somewhere?
He does meet Frodo, yeah.
Yeah, earlier on when they're leaving the Shire and whatnot, right? When they have the first time, I think, early on in the Fellowship of the Ring book, when Frodo comes across elves, isn't that when?
His name also starts with a G. I can't remember.
Oh, so it's a different elf.
It's a different elf, but he does meet Glorfindel at the Council of Elrond.
At the Council of Is Glorfindel the one that saves him on the river from the?
That's the same elf that you're thinking of, and I can't remember.
Oh
his name.
no, I'm sorry. I'm totally.
Or no. It is Glorfindel who saves him. Yes, because he releases like his like light of the trees power.
His light of the trees power.
Yeah.
I've got a modifier called light of the trees.
Light of the trees. +10.
Okay, so Glorfindel is the elf that saves Frodo from the wraiths at the river on their way to Imladris. Anyway, a cool reincarnation of a character that doesn't really happen. But back to our good friends Tuor and Idril and their son Erendil. After Glorfindel also sacrifices his life killing a Balrog so that they can safely pass through this Eagles Cleft. The Eagles actually come and save them.
Yeah, and they gather up Glorfindel's body. They retrieve it as well.
And that's kind of the last of the Fall of Gondolin. Gondolin is completely destroyed from there. Like, they level the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dragons, Balrogs, all sorts of stuff. Dragon tanks, basically.
Siege engines, yeah, the whole 9 yards.
So at this point, the refugees or the exiles of Gondolin, it says that they wandered for a year or maybe more before they eventually made their way down to the mouths of Sirion, which is where Ulmo said that they should have gone in the first place.
In the first place, yeah.
But they didn't. And so when they got down there, I think that's when they founded a new... It wasn't a kingdom because it wasn't huge and prosperous like the other ones, but didn't they?
Yeah,
name
it was
something?
basically a refugee camp.
It was like a refugee camp that they made up down there at the mouths of Sirion, right along the shore, right near Círdan, so everyone could be near each other. Good communication.
And yeah, and they mingle with the refugees from the Fall of Doriath as well.
Right, because around. Was it just after the Fall of Gondolin, or was it just
before?
Just before the Fall of Gondolin is when Doriath finally falls. It gets sacked a second time, but it is truly fallen at that point and doesn't come back.
That's when the Sons of Feanor move in and they try to kill. They kill Dior.
Yeah, they kill the king.
They kill Dior, and then Celegorm, Curufin, and Caranthir are killed. A lot of people die in that. In that, that's the second kinslaying.
Yeah, the second elf on elf slaying done by.
Sons of Feanor.
Sons of Feanor. Fucking assholes. So now the refugees of Gondolin, including Tuor and his wife Idril, and their half-elven, half-man son, Erendiel, are now safely living near the shores of the sea at the mouths of the river Sirion.
So yeah, in the year 525, they build they being Idril and Tuor, they build a ship called Eorame, the Sea Wing, and they sail into the west, and they're never heard from again.
Yeah, during the time that they stayed at the mouths of Sirion, along the shores there, the same
the sea longing
that Tuor had experienced when he first met the sea, it just grew to be too strong, so he had to go set sail.
Mm-hmm. And it's in the tradition of the Eldar and the Edain that they arrived in Valinor, and that Tuor alone is counted among the Noldor. And so yeah, that's more or less the end of this story, Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. It's basically the fruition. It comes to fruition, the prophecy of Huor at the Nirnaeth Nordiad, that the descendant of the House of Hador and Turgon would be the new hope for both houses.
Yeah. So basically the prophecy is referring to Tuor and Idril's son, Erendiel, the half-elven, half-man. And that prophecy came to fruition. But to see exactly how
that happens,
to see what Erendiel does to save the day,
stay tuned for our next episode.
Next episode, we're going to cover Erendiel and kind of finish off a lot of these major tales.
Yeah, and so stay tuned. After the episode, we have a little special announcement here. So we're going to do our sign off, and then we will come back for the special announcement. So this has been Tuor in the Fall of Gondolin. I'm Danny J.
This is Joel N.
And as always, keep on Tolkien, guys.
Keep on Tolkien.
All right, guys, this is Danny J of Keep on Tolkien.
And this is Joel N.
We're here telling you about a little thing we're doing for the holidays here, called the Gift of Tolkien, where we're essentially encouraging everybody to give a Tolkien book to somebody for the holidays. Whatever your holiday is, if you celebrate it with gifts, give a Tolkien book to somebody. I started out my Tolkien career being gifted The Hobbit, and it changed my life. So if you could give The Hobbit to a child this year and change that child's life, that's what we're about here. That's what we're asking you to do.
Yeah, if you haven't gotten it by now, we're pretty in love with Tolkien's work.
And we want to spread it.
It brings us a lot of joy.
And we want to spread that joy to other people.
Some of us have received Tolkien's work as gifts. I actually got a bunch of Tolkien's work as a Christmas gift last year, and that's kind of what sparked my huge recent Tolkien extravaganza in my life. But it's a really wonderful gift to give.
Yeah, and so what we're doing is we did a video about this, so check it out on our YouTube channel, the Keep on Tolkien YouTube channel. It's a little long, but it explains. Or no, it's not going to be a little long. The first one was long. The first one was the long video.
Right.
This one's a short video, and it's going to explain a little what we're doing here. So what you should do is take a picture or let us know via Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, guys.
Yeah, we want to kind of give you guys a shout out to anyone that decides that they want to give the gift of Tolkien this year. We want to see how many people's lives we can change by getting into this amazing fantasy work.
Right. So yeah, post it up. Hit us up about it with the hashtag the Gift of Tolkien, and we will say your name and your donation on a future episode or a future video. And that's another thing, guys. If you don't know anybody to give Tolkien books to, there are plenty of organizations that are great that you can donate books to that help underprivileged children.
Right, not even just giving it as a personal gift, but just maybe doing a donation.
Yeah, do a donation to somebody. Let us know who you donated to. Hashtag the Gift of Tolkien, and we'll talk about you. And so yeah, we're just trying to get you guys to just give one Tolkien book this season, maybe. And if you have a hard time and you don't know where to donate to, hit us up at our Gmail.
You can hit us up on Facebook or Twitter as well.
And we will help you find a place near you to donate a book for the holiday season.
Yeah, spread the love, guys. That's what we're looking for. That's all we're trying to do.
So that's what we're looking for, yeah. And we're going to talk about it in the probably the next couple episodes too. We'll mention it, but yeah. So just so Keep on Tolkien is going to be taking a break for the holidays because that's the end of our first season here. Is going to end. We've
got 2 more episodes after this one, but yeah, right after the holidays, we're going to be taking a break. We're ending it on episode 15.
So this is your guys' chance to change the world. I mean,
change the world. I mean, you're changing someone's world. That's
right,
for
somebody's
sure.
world. Like if my friend Sam came to me in 2001 and gave me The Hobbit and was like, "Dude, this is the best book ever. Read this shit," I wouldn't have a Tolkien podcast today. It changed my life. And it'll change other people's lives, guys. So give the Gift of Tolkien. Hashtag the Gift of Tolkien. Hit us up with your donation.
And enjoy your holidays, guys. Whatever it is that you're celebrating, make it worthwhile.
Yeah, and as always, keep on Tolkien.
Keep on Tolkien.